Sugar is also very addictive.
Yeah, the sugar monster's real, eh?
Yeah. And so, some people say, well, I mean, sugar, fructose gives a dopamine hit to the reward centers of your brain. And some people say, well, that doesn't mean it's addictive. I heard one guy say that, well, hugs give you dopamine hit as well. Does that mean hugs are addictive? Well, some people would say yes. They feel much better when they get hugs and they want more of them. Girls with daddy issues, for instance, they might be very addicted to those sorts of things. But the thing is, though, is that hugs aren't going to actually kill those areas of your brain from overstimulation, which is actually what fructose does. So they've done studies with MRIs in humans where they've checked just normal people that don't have sugar or drug addictions or anything like that, gave them a dose of amphetamines, some sort of medication, Vyvanse, those sorts of things. It will give this dopamine hit and give that big reward hit. And you look on MRI and they can see that the areas of the brain just light up like a Christmas tree. Then you give that same dose to a meth addict, and it's barely twinkles, right? Because the areas of the brain is dead, because they have an overstimulation from just constant turning on of this dopamine. When neurons are on, when they're firing, they actually get damaged, and they have to turn off to be able to heal and repair themselves. And so dopamine is an excitatory molecule, and so as you keep flooding your system with dopamine, it will continually excite those neurons. They'll keep turning them on. That's why it drops down the receptors. So you need more to get the same effect. That's why people increase the amount of meth and cocaine that they need to use, because they get a tolerance for it. That's what their brain's doing. They're dampening down the receptors. And then eventually, if they just keep flooding those cells start to die. And so you see that in those meth addicts. You give them a dose of amphetamines and it just barely twinkles. But then they give that same dose of amphetamines to sugar addicts who are metabolically sick, same barely twinkle. So this killed the same areas of the brain as meth to the same extent as meth. So hugs aren't going to do that. Fructose specifically. Yeah. And so it's going to be in all sort of sugar, table sugar, fruit sugar, honey, high fructose corn syrup, processed sugar, unprocessed sugar. It's all the same stuff. And so people say, well, this natural sugar comes from plants. All sugar comes from plants. It's either comes from corn, beetroots, sugarcane, or fruit, right? So that's sugar. Sugar is sugar is sugar. It's like saying, well, this is natural arsenic. And we have natural cyanide in almonds and cassava, but it's still cyanide and it can still kill you because it's cyanide. And that's the whole point. In fact, cyanide is supposed to kill you. That's what the plant's trying to do, is defend itself. But sugar is not trying to kill you, but it is addictive, and it can be addictive. I mean, just like cocaine, that's natural. That comes from the coca leaf, and heroin, that comes from poppy seed, poppy and opiates, right? Yep. So they're all plants. And so the idea that this is natural and therefore good for you is wrong. Also, hugs don't actually give you this massive dopamine burst and flood you with dopamine. They actually give a lot of serotonin, which is actually a dampening molecule, actually slows down the processes and actually preserves and protects your brain as well. So hugs, while some people may be addicted to these sorts of things or enjoy them, they're not addictive in the same way. It's all relative, right?
Has anyone died from a hug? Have you researched
that? Not that I know of.
Depends who hugs you.
Not from the dopamine exchange anyway.
Right? Jeffrey Epstein died from hugging too.
Exactly.
Came back to get him.
Yeah.
It's crazy though. I've definitely got an addictive personality, I reckon. Mm-hmm. And it kind of runs in my family, definitely, because I've had family members that have had substance abuse and stuff. But I reckon I definitely love coffee, but I stopped sugar, like fully went clean in November and December, or late October to Christmas time. So, and I could not believe how good I felt by cutting sugar out. Like any temptations, I went really clean. And I remember it took the week. I did no alcohol, no sugar, and I found the sugar was harder to quit than the alcohol, obviously. But I remember having my first piece of chocolate just after Christmas or during that festive break. I remember Whitey saying to me in the lead up, he's like, that sugar monster, why don't you have a little bit? Because I fully stopped craving it and I was in such a good place. And I did have one little taste and then it got me off the rails again. Hey, like, and it was crazy how like every day then after that, I was like, I'll have a little bit of a fun sized chocolate or something. But then it creeps back in.
Yeah.
Could you
I was always ashamed of myself.
Could you rank these in worse for my body out of a plum, an avocado, a white potato, and coconut water. Because these are my little vices.
White potato first and foremost.
Wipe that out. Yeah. So when I finished the run, I was super depleted, felt I was about to pass out. And at the ultra station, they have this little array of treats. There's like water, little jelly snakes. They had carrot cakes, cookies. You should have seen me. I was like, because I felt so low and like I was about to pass out. I was eating oatmeal cookies, grabbed a Lamington. I went past the caramel slice. I thought it did good there. But I grabbed a bag of little white potatoes. And as I'm eating them, they actually felt good.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, the Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right. Thanks, guys.
But yeah, so white potato is the worst out of them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to give you a bigger glucose spike, and you're going to give a bigger insulin hit as well. You know, I mean, it depends on the plum. I mean, plums can be very sweet. They do have fiber in them, which actually mitigates the absorption. People don't realize this, but fiber is an anti-nutrient. It actually blocks out the absorption of many nutrients. It actually stops you from absorbing things. And people say, oh, that's a good thing. You'll absorb less of the stuff that you eat. Oh, that's great, because we don't want to absorb all these things we eat. Why'd you eat it? Right? We eat things in order to gain nutrients and so we can absorb them. And so, yeah, if you're eating high octane garbage, then yeah, sure. You know, reducing the amount that you absorb is probably a good idea, but you're still absorbing some. And, you know, probably just a better idea just not to eat it at all. But plum does have some fiber. They can be very, very sweet. So they can have a lot of sugar.
These are sweet.
Sweet plums.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not great. It also depends on how much you're eating of them. If you're having a plum every now and then.
Just one every week, maybe.
Yeah. You know, as opposed to potatoes every day, you know, that's going to be different. If you're eating just bags of plums, then yeah, the plums are going to be worse. Also remember that fruit, if it's ripened on the tree or the vine, is going to have a lower toxic load. So fruit still has toxins. It's just that the sweet fruits, the ones with fructose, it's sort of a double-edged sword, fructose, because we recognize that as sweet, that sweetness as something safe. And so it's called an evolutionary trap. So we recognize that as safe. So our hindbrain is saying like, ooh, that's safe. We can eat that, right? That's not going to kill us. Right now, we can get energy from that. It won't kill us. It's a plant that's safe to eat, because we don't know of plants that contain fructose that are acutely poisonous to us that will kill us that day if we eat it. That doesn't mean they don't have toxins. Grapes and avocados will both kill cats and dogs, right? They don't kill us, but how do they kill a cat and dog? Because there are toxins in them.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but it's just that they're less toxic to us, right? So we have more of a defense towards them. But, you know, like wine has tannins, right? You know, they always like, red wine has a lot of tannins and all that sort of stuff. And where does that come from? It comes from the grape, right? So they have these tannins, which will bind to proteins, denature them. You know, they're not as useful. We can't absorb them and get as much nutrients out of them. And they do other sorts of things in your body. There's a wide variety of different tannins. They can do a lot of different things, but they're toxins, right? Yeah. And so they're just not going to kill you that day. But so we recognize, okay, that's something safe. So we recognize that as sweet. And okay. But we would never come across that amount of sugar in the wild. There would be a very small amount. Generally, the fruit were very tart. They didn't have much meat to them. They're mostly fiber and seed. And so we've just cultivated these and bred these things over the century and the millennia to make them sweet as hell, much bigger than they were before, with a much higher fructose content. And then, you know, you had to fight a swarm of bees. Like, you die, you know, doing that before they figured out how to smoke them out. You could not get access to the honey. And if you did, you figure that out. You know, people didn't come across honeybees all that often necessarily. And so, and you certainly wouldn't be finding refined sugars and sugary drinks and dumping sugar in absolutely everything. So it's called an evolutionary trap. So there's something in our brain that says, ooh, that's safe. and we get the go signal. And especially when you combine that with sugar, with fat and salt, you get a big go signal. And so that's why everything's sugary fats with salt in it, right? And so you get this big go signal and you don't know how to stop, and you eat, right? And so that's the thing. So they had these things with hummingbirds. Another example of this, hummingbirds, they're looking for little flowers to get nectar from. And they had these little connectors on these electric fences out in farms in the Midwest in America. And they had these little red plastic connectors. And it was just the right shape and the right color that it looked like the flower this little hummingbird normally went for. And it just went in, stuck its face in there, and then just hit the electric fence, dropped dead. And so just like thousands of these things were just dropping dead because they were thinking these things were flowers. So that's an evolutionary trap. Their brain is telling them, that's where my food is, that's where I got to go, and they're dying. And then they had, they changed the color of it. Even though it was the same shape, it was a different color, solved the problem. So this is our evolutionary trap. And so because we have such access to the sugar we would never have in the wild, we just don't understand that this go signal is really bad. You can have a go signal from meat, high fat meat. It tastes good. Bacon is amazing. Like, I know Jewish people who ate bacon because it's like, pig's, dirty creature. You're not supposed to eat it, but bacon's good. And like, I've had friends of mine say that who are Jewish, and it is good. It's delicious. It's salty fat. It's amazing, right? So you're getting those go signals, but that eventually doesn't taste good anymore. You get sort of negative feedback. So the more bacon you have, the more meat you have, the less good it tastes, until finally it doesn't taste good anymore. And you self-limit, you self-regulate the amount that you're bringing in. Whereas things like sugar, that regulation goes off. You're just getting this go signal the whole time, and it doesn't really dampen.
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Also, fructose, sugar in general, will raise blood sugar. That raises insulin. That does a lot of horrible things in your body, which are very important because people think, your blood sugar goes up and then insulin goes up, and that just drives energy into cells. That's a normal reaction. That's a normal process. It's a normal process down here at normal physiological levels. But when you start spiking up your blood sugar and spiking up your insulin, that is completely out of balance, because if it was just about insulin driving energy into cells, that would be one thing. But it's not. Insulin affects over 100 different metabolic processes in your body. And so if your insulin's around a 5, which is a nice place for insulin to be, then it's affecting everything at a 5, right? But then you eat some pasta, or you have that super sweet plum or bag of white potatoes, and it jumps up to 35.
Yeah.
You're affecting everything at 35. I had a patient that came in to my office a few months ago. His fasting insulin, so without eating for 24 hours, was 72, right? It should be at a 5. It was 72, right? And that's fasting, right? So if he ate something, then that was going to jump up even higher than that. So he was obviously going to have a lot of metabolic issues with that, because again, this affects over 100 different things.
Was he diabetic or something?
Yes, he was very much diabetic and had other metabolic issues. But I put him on a carnivore diet. 2 months later, actually 6 weeks later, his fasting insulin was down to 35 from 72. It means it makes a massive, massive difference immediately. Nothing else does that. No endocrinologist on this planet doing the traditional medicine up until right now, when people are actually starting to cop onto this, has ever reversed anyone with diabetes ever, right? And certainly not with the traditional methods of medication, because that just treats the symptoms. It doesn't treat the underlying disease.
Yeah.
And so this is treating the underlying disease. You're getting rid of the carbohydrates, and the insulin just comes right down. The reason the insulin goes up like that is because high blood sugar is toxic to the body. This is what kills diabetics. No one's arguing that. I've never heard anyone argue that. So the people that say, well, your blood sugar goes up and insulin goes up correspondingly, that just drives energy in. I was taught that exact phrase was taught to me in biochemistry 24 years ago.
Yep.
Right. But it ignores all the other functions that insulin has in the body. It ignores the fact that our primary metabolic state is one without carbohydrates, and that almost every animal on Earth, does, except honeybees and hummingbirds, rely on fat and protein, not carbohydrates. Carnivores, because they eat animals that are made out of fat and protein, not carbohydrates. So they're all in that ketogenic state. So that's not a stress state. That's not a famine state. That's not a, oh my goodness, we can only do this a short-term state. Like lions don't need, oh, I better carb load. This being ketosis too long is just horrible. But herbivores as well, because while they eat fibrous plants, and the vast majority of herbivores are eating fibrous plants, fiber is made out of glucose, but no animal can actually break down fiber into glucose. There's no have cellulase. They're on cellulose. The cellulase breaks down those bonds. No animal, not even termites, make cellulase. It's the microorganisms in their gut that make cellulase, and they eat the fiber. And then as a byproduct, they produce saturated fat and protein. And so they eat the fiber, but what they absorb is fat and protein. So cows and horses and gorillas, they're all getting fat and protein, and they're all in a ketogenic state. And so that ignores all that. And so when people say, well, your blood sugar is supposed to go up and then your insulin goes up and that drives that down, that's only because when we've been observing and studying biochemistry, that's what people were doing. We're eating carbohydrate-filled meals. So that was normal for the time, but that's actually not normal for humanity and our species, and it can cause a lot of problems. High blood sugar kills you. High blood sugar kills diabetics. That high blood sugar, those glucose molecules, little rings, they physically fuse to other molecules called glycation, and you can get advanced glycation end products, AGEs, and you build these things up, you're getting more and more damage in your body. And so your body is desperately trying to protect you by raising your insulin. It's like when you have a fire at your house, the fire department comes and they're hosing it down with water, and you get all this water damage. Oh, I don't want to get this water damage. And I'm like, you want your house to burn down? Right? So you take the water damage because you don't want the fire damage. You don't want it all to be destroyed, right? But then you start a fire the next day, and more water damage, and the next day, 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 and the next day. And pretty soon your house is screwed, right? Because you got a lot of water damage, you got a lot of fire damage. And you're trying to repair things and do these sorts of things, but the fires keep coming. That's what we're doing every day with high, jacking up your blood sugar. So you have about 4 grams of glucose in your entire bloodstream at any given time. That's a level teaspoon of glucose.
Yep.
Right. And that is responsible to run all the physiological processes of your body and brain. Just those 4 grams. 1 extra gram is a toxic dose of glucose in your body. 1 extra gram, you get up to 5 grams, you start overwhelming your system with glycation, and you actually can die. This is where you're losing toes and feet and legs. They get kidney failure, they go blind, they get heart disease, and they die, right? The diabetics do, right? And so that's 1 extra gram prolonged of glucose. And so of course you need your insulin to go up. That's damage control hazmat. But you're taking water damage in at the same time because you're affecting 100 other different processes, and that really screws up your body.
So the fireman with the water, is the water the insulin?
Yeah.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah. So when that old mate comes into your office and you see his numbers at 72 or whatever it is fasting, what plan do you put in place? Like for people that aren't aware, and we know you're a carnivore specialist, what are you giving him? What sort of plan? Are you going sitting down and going, mate, this is your diet? Like obviously you've got that back information on him, but you're like, this is what you need to start doing to get this stuff down. And what's he eating on day one? Once he leaves your office, what do you got him on? Yeah,
I mean, just go. You eat whatever meat that tastes good to you, makes you feel the best, you can afford and have access to. And eggs are included in that. Eggs are honorary meat. They're all the nutrients and everything, building blocks of building meat, because that turns into an animal. And then we look at their blood work. And I mean, I can tell you, I can show you all the issues with your metabolism. I can show you all the problems. I can show you your fasting insulin. I can show you your fasting leptin, which is another hormone. People's testosterone is in the tank, or women are going through premature menopause and their thyroid dysfunction. A woman has PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. They may have